So just a few days ago, I went to a strawberry field where you can pick your own strawberries. And when I got home, I put them all into a box in the fridge. And after a few days, something, well, interesting happened because some of the strawberries had turned completely moldy. Well, that is not really surprising so much. And of course, I had to throw those out immediately. But the other strawberries, well, they were fine. Most of them actually were fine, and they just dried out and they shriveled up a little bit. And they didn't look great. And of course, they're not fresh anymore. But they were not bad either. And that made me think a little bit is why did some of them go moldy while others just dried out? So what's the difference here? And what caused the strawberries to behave differently? And here's the thing, once one strawberry goes bad, then you of course have to act fast because that mold will spread over to the other berries as well. One moldy strawberry can take out the whole box, but I've also had batches where none of them actually went bad at all. The whole box just slowly dried out and no mold, nothing. So clearly not every strawberry is going to go bad. So the question now is what actually determines which ones do go bad and which ones don't. Now the mold that you see on strawberries, that's the soft gray or white fuzzy stuff, well, is usually Botrytis cinerea, sometimes also called the gray mold. And the spores of this mold are actually pretty much everywhere in nature. They're floating around in the air, they're in the soil, they land on the strawberries while they're still on the plant. But the spores alone are not enough to start an infection, because what the mold actually needs is a way in into the strawberry. And that way is usually a small break in the skin of the strawberry. And even a tiny scratch or a pressure mark might be enough. So the skin is damaged and the juices inside start to leak out just a little, and that's all the mold needs to get started. The mold feeds on that juice, it starts to grow, and then it starts to break down the strawberry tissue and spread from one berry to the next. So the skin of the strawberry is basically the main line of defense. If that is intact, then the strawberry has a much better chance. And this brings me to something that's sometimes overlooked, and that is how you handle the strawberries while you're picking them. So if you're pressing too hard, if you're squeezing them a little to check if they're ripe, if they're knocking against each other in the basket as you're walking, all of that can create tiny little damages in the skin that you can't even see. And those invisible little damage spots, these are exactly where the mold will start. And the same goes also how you actually detach, how you actually pick the strawberry from the plant. Because what I do is I usually use my fingernail to clip the stem so that the strawberry comes off with the leaves and a little bit of the stem still attached. And that matters because if you just grab the berry and pull so that the leaves separate from the strawberry, then you're actually tearing the tissue right at the attachment point, and the juices can start to leak out from there. And as we've just talked about, that leaked juice is exactly what the mold feeds on. So clip it at the stem, not at the berry. And there's also another thing I think is a really easy mistake to make, and that's one I've probably also done myself. And it is when touching a bad strawberry while you're still picking. But now your fingers have mold spores on them, and the next strawberry you pick, you're transferring those spores directly onto it. So if you touch a bad one, wipe your hands before you continue. And actually, it might not be a bad idea to just bring some wipes with you to the strawberry field, just some moist wipes or disinfectant wipes that you can quickly clean your fingers with if that happens. Another factor is, of course, moisture. Fungi need moisture to grow, and mold is no exception here. So ideally, you want your strawberries to be as dry as possible when you store them. Now, most people are not going to deliberately store the wet strawberries, but here is where it gets a little bit tricky. Because if you put cold strawberries into a warm room, or if you take them out from the fridge, and there's condensation is going to form on the strawberries. And if the strawberries are cold and the air is warmer, then the water droplets will appear on the surface of the strawberry, and the moisture creates exactly the conditions that the mold likes. So if that happens, then you have to gently pat them dry with some kitchen towel or kitchen paper before putting them back into the box. And the fridge itself is genuinely a good idea because cold temperatures slow down the mold growth significantly, but just watch out for that condensation. And then of course there's the fact that different strawberry varieties have different levels of resistance to mold. Some cultivars are just naturally tougher than others. That's not really something that you can control when you're out picking, but it does explain why sometimes a whole batch stays fine and while others, in other cases it doesn't, even when you've done everything right. And of course also the ripeness of the strawberry matters. You see, there are multiple factors here. Also, to bring it all together, the reason why strawberries go moldy and others don't usually comes down to small skin damage that gave the mold a way in, combined with the right moisture, the temperature conditions, and also of course the presence of those mold spores. And the ones that just dried out had intact skin and stayed dry enough that the mold spores never really got a foothold. So the practical takeaways are pretty simple. Handle them gently, clip at the stem when you pick them, keep an eye out for any already spoiled ones at the plant, dry them off if condensation forms, and of course you want to keep them generally cool in the refrigerator. It also prevents flies from reaching them. So that's all I want to share with you from my side. I hope that you found the video interesting. I wish you all the best. Happy microbe hunting as always, and hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.